stuff to hear from a few of you as well. I think we don't do this enough in our country anymore. Have open conversations. Right? There's no social media algorithms in the air between us tonight. There's no TV screens between us tonight. Fellow citizens, having a conversation, speaking with candor, speaking honestly. We were at Dave's house before, and I met a friend of Dave who said he pulled up on his FaceTime. His son was in Indianapolis, so that reminded me to share with you where my parents came from. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Oh, there you are, yeah. good to see you. What was your son's name? Audio was in Indianapolis. So I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. My father came from Kerala for a better education at NC State, ended up in Cincinnati. And I asked him, of all the places in the world, why did you end up in Cincinnati, Ohio? He said it was to be close to his sister who lived in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And that, of course, begged the question of why she came halfway around the world, not to New Jersey, but to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And the family joke is it is the only U.S. state with the word India contained in the same United States. So that's how we got to the American Midwest. I grew up there. And I'll take you to a moment when I was in second grade in 1993 at a small school in Southwest Ohio. When I actually heard Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech for the first time. A lot of his message in that speech was actually inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, who he went to visit. He came back to this country, shared how that informed his dream. He spoke from the footsteps of the Lincoln Memorial. What he said was that I have a dream that my 4 children will grow up in a country where they are judged, not on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. That dream had stuck with me. It meant something to me. Because it was the dream that allowed my father to come to this country and build a successful career over time at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio. Despite the fact that he had a thick Indian accent, he still does today. It's the dream that allowed my mother to come to this country, become a geriatric psychiatrist, treating patients with Alzheimer's disease in the nursing homes of Ohio. It was the dream that allowed so many of you to come to this country, build the businesses you have, be the entrepreneurs, wealth and jobs for yourself and other people in this country. It was the dream that allowed me to go in a single generation from being the kid of Indian immigrants who came to this country with no money to becoming the founder of multiple multi-billion-dollar companies. I did that while marrying my wife, Apurva. She's a surgeon at Ohio State. She's one of the best in the world at what she does, a particular form of throat surgery for post-cancer patients. Raising our 2 sons, Karthik and Arjun, following our faith in God, our belief that God put us here for a purpose, each of us, that He works through us to achieve that purpose. That is the American dream. I am genuinely worried that that American dream will not exist for our kids and their generation unless we all do something about it. Right now, we're going through this national identity crisis. Faith, patriotism, hard work, family. These things have disappeared. And that leaves a black hole in our hearts. When you have a black hole that runs that deep, that is when the poison fills the void. Right? Young people, I'm 38 years old. I'm a millennial. I'm the first 38-year-old, first millennial ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. Thank you. Yes. I now will be the first Indian American president. I'd be the youngest president ever elected. If I'm elected. With your help, we will get there. But I will tell you what's going on with my generation. Right? We are hungry for a cause. We are starved for purpose and meaning and identity. At a time in our history when the things that used to fill that void, belief in God, belief in country, belief in self, those things have disappeared, and then that comes back to that When you have a vacuum that runs that deep, that is when the poison fills the void. We can debate what the poisons are. Republicans and Democrats can debate it. Wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, globalism, depression, anxiety, fentanyl, suicide. Do you think it's an accident that we see the rise of these same poisons at the same time? That's not an accident. That's a symptom of a deeper void of purpose and meaning. And for a long time, I've seen the Republican Party do this, and I think you all know this about me. I'm not a politician. I've never run for office. I've built successful businesses. I come from outside of government. I didn't think I was going to run for president. But what I saw the Republican Party is a party where we have a lot of people who are pointing to the problem, but without offering a vision of our own. So yes, if the other side is offering race, gender, sexuality, climate, we can't just complain about these things. We have to offer a vision of our own. Individual, family, nation, God. That beats race, gender, sexuality, and climate if we have the courage to actually stand for something. We have been, for a long time, we have been running from something. Now is our moment, though, to actually start running to something, to our vision of what it means to be an American. I want everybody to think about that tonight. What does it mean to be an American today? Does it have some meaning? It's not just a piece of paper that you get, file away, call it your citizenship. It means something. It means that we believe in a shared set of ideals that unite this country across all of our differences. Ideals like meritocracy and the pursuit of excellence. The idea that you do get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contributions. That is why I will end affirmative action or racial preferences in every area of American life, so that the best person gets that job or gets into college or gets into this country, whatever it is. That is what America's founded on. It's founded on merit. Getting ahead with your hard work and commitment and dedication. It is founded on the rule of law. I say this as the kid of legal immigrants to this country. So many who have added so much to this country. That also means that your first act of entering this country cannot break the law. Come through the front door rather than the back door. We have to fix that problem if we need to through the front door, but we can't break the law to do it. It means we get rid of bureaucracy in government. That the people who we elect to run the government ought to at least be the ones who actually run the government. Today, it's the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. that wield most of the power, not even Congress or the Senate. That's where the regulations hampering your businesses and countless others across this country actually come from. They come from three-letter government agencies, FDA to EPA to DOL, from the regulations that were never enacted even by Congress. So I can fix that as the next president. I've said that if Congress hasn't directly made it as a law, then those regulations are themselves unconstitutional. We'll rescind them. That's how we grow this economy. Drill for more oil, frack for natural gas, use coal, use nuclear energy. Stop paying people using taxpayer money, paying them more money to stay at home than to go to work. That's part of why we have a worker shortage in this country. Stop paying people to do the opposite of what's best for them. I visited the inner city of Chicago. I've been to inner cities across this country. We're using our taxpayer money to pay single mothers more money not to have a man in the house than to have a married man in the house. We're giving away crack pipes and syringes in the inner city in the name of helping people. Paying people more money not to repay their student loans than to repay their student loans. So on my watch, we will stop paying people to do the exact opposite of what is best for them. That's how you deal with our national debt problem. I know we have some CEOs in the room tonight. Well, I think it's time we have a CEO in the White House. You know, address the national debt problem. $33 trillion in national debt. That's going to be borne by Neha and her generation, and my kids and their generation. Unless we do something about it. Here's how we fix it. Don't start with last year's budget as the baseline and then ask how you fix it a little bit around the edges. Start with 0 as the baseline and then ask what's actually necessary from the ground up. See, these aren't black ideas or white ideas. These aren't even really Democrat ideas or Republican ideas, not really. These are fundamentally American ideals that we fought a revolution in 1776 to secure. And I'm running for president because I believe those ideals still exist. See, I'll tell you what happened in my generation. We were taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways that we are really just the same as Americans, bound by a common set of ideals that set this country into motion 250 years ago. We forget that founding spirit. Thomas Jefferson, he wrote the Declaration of Independence. You know, the people, sometimes you may hear them saying on TV, am I too young to be president? I'm 38. Thomas Jefferson was 33 years old when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. Unbelievable. And he was an inventor. And many of you may not know this. I didn't know this until I invented the swivel chair while he was writing the Declaration of Independence. Benjamin Franklin, the man who independence along with him, invented the bifocal spectacles that we wear today, a remedy for the common cold. The Franklin stove, a predecessor to the modern stove. He signed the Declaration of Independence, but he also invented that. I want you to think about yourselves in this room. I bet many of you. You're the kind of people who would invent today's version of the Franklin stove, or the bifocal spectacle, or the swivel chair. People who are not going to be stopped. Inventive people. Came to this country to pursue it, have already made contributions doing it. That's what our founding fathers in the United States were really like. We don't have those kind of politicians today. Today it's like a factory, it's like an assembly line. You create a puppet that recites the same slogans. What we need to bring back is that spirit of our founding. That we're the pioneers, we're the explorers. We can do anything that we set your mind to without anybody standing in your way. That's what it means to be an American. So I think our diversity, it can be a beautiful thing, no doubt about it. But it's meaningless unless there's something more that binds us together across that diversity. Without that, we're really just a different looking group of two-legged higher mammals walking some geographic space that we call a country, doing what our iPhones told us to do on a given day. That's not America. America is a vision of what that place can be. E pluribus unum. From many, one. See, that is the dream that won the American Revolution. That is the dream that reunited this country after the Civil War. That is the dream that won us 2 world wars and the Cold War. That is the dream that still gives hope to the free world. And if we can revive that dream over group identity and victimhood and grievance, then nobody in the world, not a nation, not a corporation, not a virus, not China, is going to defeat us. That is what American exceptionalism is all about, and that is what we will revive to save our great country. Thank you for coming out tonight. I enjoyed it. We're just going to open this up. I'll hear from you all. I'll take a few questions from you, and we're going to open this up. Let's have a conversation, and then we'll have some time for some chit-chat afterwards before we leave. So, please, sir. If you're just project,
I can just ask it. You can ask you light loud.
So
enough.
Vivek, what's going on in our country with the open borders? We
Open
all
borders.
know. So what's your plan to stop it immediately?
So I'm a pragmatist. So the question is about the open borders in our country. And thank you for your service to this country. You serve in the police. Thank you. We met on the way in. Give this man a round of applause for being the police department. I'm proud of you. We need to make it easier for you to do your job. We don't support law enforcement in this country. So here's how we fix the illegal immigration crisis. Stop providing aid to Central America until they have stopped their own flow of illegal migrants from Venezuela all to this country. I go to the Rio Grande. I mean, that's basic. Why would we use our taxpayer money to help another country that's not doing the job that we need them to do? Well, they'll start doing the job, but we have to attach the requirement. Now, I went 2 weeks ago to Eagle Pass, Texas. I was on the southern border myself. I saw it with my own eyes. This is a solvable problem. Use aquatic barriers in the Rio Grande. They're very cheap. They're mobile. They're effective. We're just not using them. Use our own military instead of protecting somebody else's border in God knows where, halfway around the world. Use our own military to protect the open holes in our own southern border. Stop using federal taxpayer money, our money, to pay so-called sanctuary cities, which are now suffering with waves of illegal migrants and crime. So these are basic solutions. These should not be controversial. I'll tell you, I went to a room full of Democrats, actually, 95% black in the south side of Chicago. Every one of them agreed with me on this. Why? Because they're turning their own high school, South Shore High School, into an encampment for illegal migrants. And they're getting $7,000 per migrant per month in the total expenses. Whereas the people in that community are left holding the bag. So this isn't about Republicans and Democrats. And here's the other thing. You know who actually is harmed the most by illegal migration? Hispanics, actually. Because it's going to be the legal ones who came, whose kids are still recruited to join those gangs. So this isn't helping anybody except for the people who are in charge. The current administration and otherwise. So that ends on my watch. This is not a challenge of an engineering challenge, right? This is a country that put a man on the moon. We can put up some aquatic barriers in the Rio Grande and use our military to seal the border. It's not a challenge of technical prowess. It's a challenge of will. That means you require someone with fortitude. And I think that's going to take someone coming from the outside, not from within government. Someone from the next generation to speak with a fresh voice. And that's why we will be able to take hardline solutions, but still unite this country in the process. And that is how I'll lead. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you again for your service. I'm very proud of you. Please.
Vivek, my name is Hemant Bhatt. I am the founder and chairman of South Asian Republican Coalition. I have a question for you. What would you do as the President of the United States of America to reduce the 33 trillion debt what we have right now?
Yes, reduce the national debt. Well, I can give one example, which is I'll be zero-based budgeting. So I'll start with zero as the budget baseline instead of last year's budget. That fixes half the problem. Here's another way to fix it. Stop fighting pointless wars that don't advance the American interest. That's something that we have a bad habit of. $7 trillion of our national debt comes from Iraq and Afghanistan. 7 out of 33, that's a lot. That's one way to do this. Another way to do this is deliver economic growth that allows us to effectively pay down that debt, sell our oil, natural gas, coal, actually grow the economy and stop paying people more money using our taxpayer money that takes national debt and drives it up to pay them more to stay at home than to go to work. It's not even good for them, let alone for the economy. That much alone can bring down our national debt to a manageable place while still keeping Social Security and Medicare intact without allowing people to be afraid of whether they're going to lose that among seniors today. And then we get to a place where we can reduce the size of the federal government. I would fire 75% of the bureaucrats working in Washington, D.C. They shouldn't be here. Give that money back to the people. We get our national debt under control. It's time we have a CEO in the White House. That's all it takes to get this done. That's what I'll bring to the table. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is just garbage, which we might get rid of now too, which I hope we will. Next question.
individuals' right, when it comes to Israel or India, why the same thing is not talked about? The way Israel is the only country who is occupying another country in the entire world. And we people are paying for it, for the human genocide and ethnic cleansing.
Well, I'll say a couple things here. I think that I have a general principle, and I want to come to this side of the room too, so I'll go quickly here. I'm seeing a bunch of hands here. Yeah, I'll come right here, next. Well, I'll take it together. Yeah.
By definition, I'm racist.
And I like your tie.
Thank you.
We'll address it together.
And then I told you earlier this evening, I really applaud your interview this morning with Harris.
Oh yeah, thank you for watching that. I appreciate it.
My question to you, again, the old white guy that's here. How important do you think your religious beliefs are going to be in this place? Because I don't believe this president has ever elected anybody that wasn't a Christian.
So I'll address these together, actually. So one is, I just think the short version of I'll just tie all this up is, I take George Washington's vision in his 1796 farewell speech. Don't entangle yourselves in some foreign conflicts that don't advance the American interest. We've made that mistake before. My generation suffered. It's people my age that we sent to Iraq and Afghanistan to die. $7 trillion in national debt. To what end? So my view is that we are going to set the best example for the rest of the world when we are strong at home. And we should stay out of other conflicts that don't generally advance the American interest. Keep us out of World War III. And I am genuinely worried. We're as close to World War III as we have been in my lifetime. So one of my top jobs as your next president, I'm more focused on this than anybody in either party. Keeping us out of World War III instead of, if you want to send our sons and daughters to die in places like Ukraine or the Middle East, choose somebody else. I'm not your guy. But if you want to advance the American interest, my moral obligation is to the citizens of this country. So that's how I will lead. Now, I'm going to address the religion question. I think the religion piece of this is, the easy thing for me to do would be to change my name, Vivek, make it become a Vic or a Vicky or pretend to be a Christian or something like this. I don't want to do that. But there's actually something in your question a small premise that I want to correct. Because a lot of people don't know this. Thomas Jefferson, I brought him up before, right? Turns out he wasn't a Christian. He was a deist. He believed in God, but he wasn't a traditional Christian. John Adams would write him letters afterwards. Actually, for this group, you may find this interesting. Some of you may know this. John Adams became a scholar of Sanskrit in his years after he left the White House and would write that in his letters to Thomas Jefferson. So we have
And don't forget JFK.
And we have JFK was Catholic. And I went to Catholic high school, even though I'm into it, learned the values that this country was founded on from a Christian perspective too. My view is we have to share the values the country was founded on. And I swear an oath to the Constitution. So do we share those core American values in common? Yes, we do. And I think that being a person of faith today, I am Hindu, and I am proud of that. I practice my religion as well. Yes. I believe in Christian God. But the values that is very similar to Christians or Jews or others who I meet across this country, that God put us here for a purpose. It's not being done by us, it's being done through us. Don't be attached to the result. Do your part and expect God to do His.
If you are elected, please bring back beliefs in our schools.
Bring back conviction. That's what we're actually longing for. So that much I can do. Make faith and family and hard work and patriotism cool again for young Americans. That much I can do. It's the close by, I can do that.
So, such a pleasure to see you in person. You can't believe. My name is Vinny Mahajan. I'm a good friend of Dave. My question is, corporate America, big corporate like Apple, they do use tax shelter policies. They are based out of Ireland, Cayman Island, the whole gimmicks they play. So they pay very less in taxes, whereas average business owner, is taxed to the hilt. So what have you thought about that?
I have a very simple solution here. You don't know the best way to deal with tax gimmicks? Bring down the tax rate. Then the gimmicks aren't worth as much. So I give her a 12% flat tax across the board, period. Capital gain, ordinary income, doesn't matter, 12%, that's it. That'll grow the economy. And that's part of meritocracy. You shouldn't have to apologize for your success. And then the gimmicks won't be worth it because they won't need them. And the fact of the matter is, everybody, the way it works is deduction will work less. Depending on how much the tax rate actually is, bring it to a flat 12% across the board. That's what I think. Okay.
My name is George Allen. So there are like 1 million people on HTTP who are waiting for visa. Sir, as a president said, we will be able to do that.
And we talked about this earlier. So here's what I think we need is radical reform. Bring back merit. Instead of using a lottery, like we don't do college admissions by lottery. Why would we do college admissions by lottery? We shouldn't do immigration by lottery either. Come back to merit. Provide actual mobility. And so debureaucratize this, but to rebuild trust.